No, you're probably right. There probably is a happy medium somewhere between those two extremes. And I guess I just worry that sometimes, no matter, how much I've left where I grew up, I'm still back there, right? What's that saying? You can take Carmen out of JP, but you can't take the JP out of the girl, right? JP is Jamaica Plain, where I grew up. But I say that honestly. I'm not fighting where I came from. I embrace where I came from, but I also don't want to feel stifled and set in my ways because I can't wrap my head around new ideas and new thought processes, right? So, shoes, I get it now. And certain things I do believe you need to spend money on for quality, and I get that. And so I want to be always improving and getting smarter and better. So yeah, that's my story on towels. I hope that was as exciting for you as it was for me. Especially when I moved to Los Angeles, but even before then, if I'm being honest, I have always been aware of my, poor man's mindset is probably the best way to describe it. The irony is, of course, that as I've gotten older, I realize that a poor man's mindset is not necessarily a bad thing, but that's like a whole other conversation. But yeah, growing up poor and in a one-parent household with multiple mouths to feed, you learn real quick that anything with the word new in it probably isn't going to be in your sphere, right? I was never going to have new shoes or new clothes or new toys. They would always be hand-me-downs. And they were hand-me-downs from like people I've never met, right? Because we would get things from secondhand stores or from friends and relatives or whatever. But I think that was a pretty normal thing in the neighborhood I grew up in anyway. But it just was part of how you grew up. There were definitely people who always had more than I did, but like they wore gold chains and they had jewelry or they had, the Barbie. Like I never had a Barbie doll ever. And I know the movie is out. And so everyone's excited to see the movie. And in my head, I'm like, I can't even go see that movie, which whole other conversation. I probably will see it, but there's a part of me that I have a little bit of angst about that because I never had a Barbie. And I never had all the toys and everything else that came with it, the Ken dolls and the pools and the cars. All my friends did, but I never had them. And I think all of that was pretty normal for kids who grew up poor in the 70s and 80s. I don't think that's an anomaly again, especially growing up in my neighborhood. But the few times I do remember getting something new, they are profound and vivid, and it's like I can go right back there in time. And one of them, I wrote about them in my book, Canela, is when my mother, in all of the memories I have, this one is the most profound, but she took me to a store to buy horseback riding boots because I wanted them so badly because I was marching in parades and everybody else had the boots, but I did not. I had pretend ones, right? I was wearing sneakers with kind of a padded thing around my legs to make it look like I had boots, but I didn't have them. And then one day out of nowhere, my mother took all the money she had and found a way to buy me these boots. And even then, here's another idea of what it means to have a poor mindset mentality. Even then, my mom bought them like 2 or 3 sizes too big, and they would cut the back of my knees because they were too long. So eventually they got cut, you know what I mean? But they, it's also because you're going to grow into them was the idea, I mean, I know parents do that now too, but this was definitely about, and we're not buying new ones, so you're going to have to wear them for a long time type of thing. So I remember why, and I understand why sometimes I have an inability to spend money on things that I think I should be able to. And I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, when I moved here, I landed in the neighborhood of La La Land. So I call it that, but it's basically West Los Angeles. I had come here during the O.J. Simpson trial, and that wasn't my intention. It just happened to be right after I graduated from college. And I moved out here and I had $800 in my pocket and I didn't know anybody. I had a suitcase and I had a round trip ticket. That's all I had to go back home if it failed, my being here. But I remember landing here and I remember going to Ocean Avenue and I remember going and just standing there and overlooking the ocean. And because it's kind of like if you've never been to Santa Monica, there's a level and then you can overlook PCH and you can see the ocean below you. And I live right across the street from there now. But even back then, I remember just being so grateful to be here. And I remember how blue the ocean was against these beautiful brown mountain tops, from a distance. There's a spot here that anyone who comes to visit me knows that this is my spot. This is the area I look out all the time. I visit it almost, daily. And I remember being so settled and comfortable and happy being here. And when I turned around, because when you turn around, you can see the street side, every car that was parked along the street side was a BMW, a Mercedes, a Porsche. It was some exquisite car and none of them were clunkers and all of them were new and shiny. And I remember thinking like, I only have this suitcase and this $800 and I don't care. Like all these people have more money than I do. They have everything. They all work in the industry. They know everybody. And yet I was the happiest I'd ever been at that moment in time. And knowing that I was nothing and nobody in relative terms to what I was about to pursue. And I think one of the things that was so magnificent about just the sheer naivete of it all, but I just realized quickly, even as I landed in Los Angeles and was here on my own and didn't know anybody and was just seeing a ridiculous amount of wealth, I realized that it didn't matter because even here, just as I had grown up in the neighborhood and even as I had worked in Boston's financial district, money really did not determine how good of a person you were. Like I knew that my entire life. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I don't want to have a lot of money, but what I understood even in that moment and something that I have understood my entire life is that no matter how much money you have, it does not determine whether or not you're a good person or a bad person. I know poor people who are horrible, horrible human beings. And I know rich people who are worse than they are, like worse human beings than I could ever imagine. Nasty, disgusting people who have more wealth than anyone could imagine. And I also know really rich people who are the most beautiful human beings on the planet. And money is like just another aspect of who they are, like their green eyes or something, or their long hair or their braids. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. And then I know really poor people who are the heart and soul of humanity. And I love that the one thing I've always known to be true is still true today to me. Now, again, I just want to go back to the idea that this was about towels, but I know. I'm doing this in the longest way possible. But here's the problem. When you grow up in poverty and you don't understand wealth and you're not taught about how to deal with wealth, that's when it can become pretty corruptive, right? We've all heard the stories of people who've won a lot of money or inherited a lot of money and they had nothing and then they've gone broke. And you can Google lottery winners who end up wishing they never won the lottery to begin with, because if you don't understand money, you don't know how to deal with it when it does come your way. This happens to a lot of people too who become successful. It's not just about winning money or inheriting money. People who become, incredibly wealthy or successful very fast have a lot of stumbling blocks if they don't have people who can intervene and walk them through, So the same is true, like in the other direction, right? The other direction being not that you have a lot of money and lose it, but even if you're someone like me who's really just never understood wealth in such a dramatic way, you also can't handle giving to yourself, even if you have the money. So let me explain. This is going to get to the towels eventually, but, when I first came out here, I was a very simple person. I was never into fashion. I was never into buying expensive stuff. And I'm not even going to say that I'm frugal, because even as a young kid, when I wanted something, I would wait for it. I'd save money for it and then I would get it. But, it will always be a difficult thing for me to spend $600 or $700 on a t-shirt. I know that there's a different type of quality to a t-shirt than one you buy at, let's say, Target or Target or The Gap or James Pierce, or, we can go down the line of all different types of t-shirts. And for me, there's still a difficulty in buying a t-shirt that's $600 or $700 or $800. I just can't do it. So, I buy t-shirts from Patagonia, which are expensive enough, but I feel like at least that money is going towards a good cause somehow. I need it to be justified, which is not to say that designer t-shirts and t-shirts that are of good quality are not worthy. That's not my point. My point is talking about poor man's mentality and my struggle with trying to work through this. Okay. That's what I'm trying to talk about right here. So I'm giving you the backdrop and the reasoning behind it. So I remember, having to make a decision to buy some clothes because I was working for a design company. And not that I was told that I needed to dress differently, but it was pretty obvious that I needed to up my game. And one of my clients at the time, Arlene, who I had kind of stopped working for her because I was working for this other company, but we would meet and we became really good friends. She was older than I was. She has since passed away. She was just a brilliant lady, and she had been through some struggles in her own life with her own situations, but she grew up in money. And what was really great was that she always said that she admired my ability to deal with people from all walks of life and treat everyone with such respect and dignity. Now, a lot of her friends are big time celebrities. One of her best friends is a big time celebrity. And, in all fairness to Arlene, I had to admit to her at one point, so I know you think that I treat everybody with respect and kindness, but I really didn't know who this best friend of yours was. So I didn't really know who she was. So it wasn't like I could even, pretend I was in awe of who she was. And then when somebody told me who she was, I felt really stupid anyway, and I never name drop, so I'm not going to name drop, but you can get an idea, right? It was just that I did not grow up in that era, so I didn't know who this person was. But, I'll just say it this way. It's somebody on the level of a Tony Bennett, I respect and admire Tony Bennett, but I don't know anything about Tony Bennett. I probably have heard music, but I don't, you know what I mean? It's kind of that same thing. And I know I'm going to get a lot of people yelling at me. May he rest in sweet peace. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the caliber of friendship I'm talking about that she had with this other person. It is somebody that when you say the name, you absolutely should know who they are, is my point, whether or not you watch them in the movies or television or like Tony Bennett, listen to his music, right? So, but yeah, I really don't have a problem at all meeting very wealthy people, very star-ridden, celebrity-esque people. I don't care how wealthy you are or how poor you are. I'm pretty cool and comfortable around people because I love people. And I love getting to know them. And I am not shy when it comes to that stuff. I love walking into the room and saying hi to everybody and introducing myself. I mean, if it's appropriate, not if it's not appropriate. But she was always in awe of my ability to treat people with such respect and dignity. And I thought that was a weird thing to be in awe of. But she had gone with me the first time I needed to buy clothes. We went to Barney's, and this was a much different situation that I'd ever been in. But, the way in which she shops is she goes to Barney's and sits down, and they bring clothes to her, and they actually bring models or whatever. I don't know if they're models, but people will come walking by. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is crazy. This is not how it's done, And then we went and had lunch at Barney's afterwards or whatever. And we talked about it. And it was my first introduction to, understanding the quality of fashion design and having a whole new respect for the art form. Because when you grow up the way I did, and I didn't have an inkling for fashion, because I know a lot of people who grew up as poor as I did and are fashion buffs and made their own clothes or, did their own stuff, and they were fabulous and amazing and understood. It just wasn't my thing. It wasn't my thing at all. You know what I mean? So I went to, whatever stores I had to go to get whatever I needed, but I was never a big, huge, I don't know, extravagant person about it is what I'm saying. So she taught me a lot about fashion. And the day it clicked for me was when I bought my first pair of Jimmy Choos. And I understood on a whole new level that when you can put on a pair of heels and you can run in them, that is a well-made pair of shoes. So I became a fan of designer shoes, and I started understanding quality, and I was taught something different, and it became easier. And yet I remember calling my best friend Mia at the time, because I was going to spend like $150 on a pair of jeans, and this was back in the day. So it was like a lot of money for me to be spending on a pair of jeans. And she was like, yeah, who cares? It's your money. You have it. You're not paying your rent, or like, she was almost annoyed with me calling her. And I was like, okay, what about these flip-flops? And I remember the flip-flops were like $100. She was like, why are you buying flip? She's like, you know what? Again, if you want them, just buy them. But it was a lot of guilt and talking through and trying to get to a place where I felt comfortable to buy these things. And so, I conquered this, again, I'm not a big extravagant fashion person even today. I love fashion. I respect fashion. And I'm not saying you have to spend a lot of money to look good or to have good quality stuff, but I do understand the art form of it. I do understand why things are more expensive, but I also do appreciate the ability to intertwine good quality and sensible, cost of things. So again, we're getting way off track here, but I am talking about poor man's mentality, trying to learn and relearn how to change some things. And every time I think I'm getting better at it, I realize I get sucked back in. And so the other day I decided that I would go and buy towels, okay? Because I needed them. I hadn't bought towels in I don't know how long. I don't think I've ever bought towels. I'm just going to tell you the truth. Don't think I've ever bought towels. I might have bought towels when I owned a condo in Brentwood, and then I don't know what happened, but I've never bought towels since. So that's like, you're talking 2006, 2007 or something like that. So I needed to buy new towels. So I went to Target and I bought towels, right? That's what you do. You just go to Target, buy towels. Well, let me tell you, I have been like so stressed because I wash the towels, right? I always wash things before I wear them or use them or whatever. So I wash them. And then they were these green, beautiful towels. I thought they'd go well with, my decor or whatever. And I take a shower, I get out the shower and I try to dry off, and it's just lint everywhere. Lint everywhere. I was so upset. So I Googled about the towel situation. What is this? And, I had to go wash them again or whatever. And then people were like, you can't buy cheap towels. These were cheap. I didn't think they were cheap when I bought them. They were like $8 each. I thought that was a normal amount to pay for towels, which they are. All this to say is that I asked a few people, and somebody is telling me I have to spend $54 per bath towel to get a good towel. And I'm like, I'm not spending $54 for one bath towel. So it's like from one extreme to another. You know what I mean? I spent $54 on the 4 that I bought from Target. You know what I mean? Or whatever it was. I think there was like 8 or something. I don't even know, but it was a huge deal. I'm just cracking up because every time I try to get myself out of this space, I grew up poor. I grew up in a kind of situation where we couldn't spend money whatsoever. And not that I have a lot of money now, but I certainly could spend money on towels if I needed to. I just feel like that's a nonsense amount of money to spend on towels is all I'm trying to say. Okay. Was that a long-winded enough answer for you? I hope so. Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.